at it through a spiritual lens and a lens of energy, it feels like where we are as a world is exactly where I thought we were going to get to, which is this time of things falling apart in order to get better. Battle, if you like, between love and fear, or love and darkness when it comes to how humans want to treat each other. So I guess spiritually, I kind of have known this time was coming for a long time. However, as a human being going through it, it's intense, because even if you have a knowing that things need to change and that there does need to be a people revolution, and we're definitely at the beginning of that right now. And as I move into this very new time, like everybody is, things start to come undone in you, or things are no longer held in place in your belief system because the thing that you were believing in has radically changed.
Welcome to Deeply Well, a soft place to land on your journey. A podcast for those that are curious, creative, and ready to expand in higher consciousness and self-care. This is where we heal. This is where we transcend. In today's episode, I am so excited. Well, first things first, hey y'all, it's Devi Brown. So happy to be here with you. And if you're watching on YouTube, you kind of see me in my very stylish, humongous sling across my arm. So I will have some updates for you on some of those things that are happening with me very, very soon. But I'm so excited to have you back here. And I'm just so excited for this episode. We are really climbing into some new terrain in this episode, and I am joined by a very dear friend. And I think that the timing couldn't be more perfect. So without further ado, I would love today to share with you that I am having a special conversation with one of my favorite people. He is a special and gifted being who I have not yet had the pleasure of hosting on this show, but I have been on one of my favorite interviews I've ever done. And I'm so excited to introduce you to my dear friend, Lee Harris. Lee is a globally acclaimed energy intuitive, channeler, author, and musician. His grounded practical teachings focus on the expansion of your intuition and awareness to help you live a more heart-centered life. He leads a vibrant online community that reaches 1 million people every month. His new book was just released on March 18th, The Future Human: New Ways of Living and Being on Earth by Lee Harris and Regina Meredith. This book presents a series of profound conversation between Lee's guides, the Z's. Regina draws out illuminating and inspiring perspectives on the evolution of the human mind, body, and soul. Welcome to the show, Lee.
Hello, my friend. Thank you for having me. It's great to be with you.
So happy to have you here. And you've been on a whirlwind. You have been touring all over the world. You have been just sharing so much. And I think I got you when you just made it back home and right before you're heading off to Australia and other parts. And how are you?
I'm good, actually. I'm good. It's been a big year, but I had this really strong feeling that it was time to go back out into the world after several years. You know, in 2020, we had to cancel and postpone a bunch of events. And so I just thought, I'm going to wait. And then last year, I thought, this is the time we need to go and be with people. So we're about to take the tour to Australia and New Zealand.
Wow.
And but I'm good. I mean, like everybody, it's been a lot. It's been quite a time, quite a life process. But today I'm really good, and I'm very happy to be with you.
Yeah, so happy to have you here. And I have so many questions, and I can't wait to dive into this book, because to say that this book is timely seems like such an understatement. We are in revolutionary times. We're really in revolutionary times. I'm so curious, and I think something that a lot of listeners on this show are either already connected to or at the beginning stages of really kind of cultivating and firming up, it would be the connection to one's intuition. And as someone like yourself who is an acclaimed channel and connector to the divine, and you've been doing this work for so long, I'm so curious, and I know we're going to dive into it, especially through the lens of the book, but Intuitively and spiritually, what are you feeling about this moment as a man, as a being on earth that also has this heightened sensitivity to the bigger themes happening?
So spiritually, if I look at it through a spiritual lens and a lens of energy, it feels like where we are as a world is exactly where I thought we were going to get to, which is this time of chaos, a time of things falling apart in order to get better, a kind of battle, if you like, between love and fear, or love and darkness, when it comes to how humans want to treat each other. So I guess spiritually, I kind of have known this time was coming for a long time, because it has been prophesized. My own guides spoke about it to me. However, as a human being going through it, it's intense, because even if you have a knowing that things need to change and that there does need to be a people revolution, and we're definitely at the beginning of that right now. Like we're very evidently at the beginning of it, whereas it's been forecast for years. I think it's a lot, because just as humans, you know, I have my own thoughts, my own feelings, my own history. And as I move into this very new time, like everybody is, things start to come undone in you, or things are no longer held in place in your belief system, because the thing that you were believing in has radically changed. So I think, like a lot of people, I feel the intense healing of this time for myself personally. And then I also, I think many of us feel this too, for those of us who are a bit more prepared for this time. Doesn't mean you always navigate it gracefully, but it's not such of a shock as it is to some other people. I really feel for the people who are going through the shock of this time, and the pain of this time, and the suffering of this time, and because there's a lot of that going round as well. And so my guides always said there will be a group of you whose job it will be to hold space when these times come around. And I think that's why so many people are feeling a call to do that now, whether you just do that in your personal life for people you love, or whether you are an actual healer or coach or therapist, or whatever the modality is, you're holding space for people to let their feelings and their thoughts have a space to unravel safely. Which is not how many of us grew up. You know, I was born in 76 in Britain. That wasn't what was going on when I was a kid. So I'm happy that there are more resources, and that the internet has allowed a connection between us all, and a place to find what you might need. But these are big times.
These are big times. Everything that you said, let's just settle into it. Two of the things that came up as you were saying that is for those that are feeling really rocked in this moment, especially, and I think to exactly what you said, we're all feeling it, but we're feeling it in different capacities. Like some of us are feeling it from the observational sense. Some of us are feeling from the like personalized experience sense. And I feel so prepared to be alive right now. I think that's the best way to put it. I feel like, put me in, coach. This is what I was born for. I came for this exact moment. Not to say that there aren't days that utterly exhaust me and also break my heart, you know, but I do feel prepared to be alive right now. But what do you think, as the broader theme, what is the pain of this time?
I think the pain of this time there are many pains, right? But what hits me in this moment is the lack of safety. I think one of the pains for people is the lack of safety, whether it's that you're a group that is completely being marginalized or continuing marginalization, or you're not being looked after, you're not being served. How is the planet going to survive is the big kind of question that so many people have. And then also the levels of deception that we're learning about that have taken place within our power systems. And again, it was always forecast that a lot would come out during these times, things that we didn't know or that we had lived through. And so it's a little bit like, I mean, if you want to look at it dramatically, it's like learning that the babysitter is also a psychopath.
Yeah.
And that's who you've been left in the house with.
Yeah.
But then also there's the child part of yourself that can go, oh my God, what the hell is going on? And then there's also the adult part of us that's also our job. Our job is to be here as adults in this time and to the best of our ability, and that will depend on your circumstances or that day. What can we do to help? Whether it's helping the people who are negatively affected by everything that's going on, or whether you are one of the frontline people to change the paradigm. You know, you might be an activist in politics right now. You might be an activist on the front lines for the environment. Who knows what your role is, and our roles are all different. And I will say one thing I think that's really important if you are in shock right now, or if you are in grief right now, or the rug in your life has been pulled out from under you, your only job, apart from any responsibilities you might have, is to recover yourself.
Oof.
And sometimes I see people in that state, and I've been in that state myself a few times in my life. That is not the time to try and save the rest of the world. That is the time to go, oh, for whatever reason, something seismic just happened to me. It's going to change me forever.
Huh.
But it might take me 6 months, 9 months, 18 months to recover. And if I've got kids, or if I'm a carer for people, or I've got a really hard job, I have to make my priority in the time I can recovering myself. It's the put your own oxygen mask on first, so that you're breathing and have enough oxygen to be able to put the oxygen mask on for someone else. And I think that's a place that healers or sensitives with an overdeveloped responsibility around pain or suffering, or people who are struggling, that can be a bit of a mind trip. And I think sometimes we're brought to our knees so that we stop behaving in ways that are helping others but costing ourselves. Sometimes we're brought to our knees because we have to learn how to look after ourselves. And I know it's happened to me. I know you and I in our personal chats have talked about the moments in our life where we've been forced to look after ourselves in ways that we didn't know how before, or no one else was doing it for us.
Yeah. I thank you for saying all of that. Like, I think that is so perfectly timed and just so important. And I just like that term, right? Because I think a way that it's being positioned, which is accurate and important, has been around resting, right? But there's some ways that doesn't fully make sense to people's minds or lives, like especially if it feels like there is all these activations coming in, this idea of like rest with all this happening. But when you said recover, you have to recover to be in this. Like you gotta, for lack of a better term, you gotta be in like fighting shape to be alive right now.
So true.
Emotionally, spiritually, physically, like mentally, like we have to be in better shape in all those capacities to be really present for what this moment is.
Yeah, and it's interesting you say that, because last year I had this really strong feeling for myself. I have to get stronger physically. I mean, I was doing it mentally and emotionally in various ways, but I had this real strong feeling of I have to clean up my physical act and get as strong as I can. And for someone else, it might be that they're going to therapy for the first time and beginning to look at the map of who they are, because so many of us weren't invited to that kind of understanding. Many of us fell into self-growth either because we knew there was something else to life, or some kind of crisis took us there. And actually the truth is, the map of who we all are is massively affecting our daily lives. So even with everything you and I are talking about right now, and we have to be in shape, there is a lot of magic and a lot of light on the planet that I have to report every month. I do an energy update on YouTube on the 1st of every month. And, I get 8 themes usually for the month. And there's always a couple that are really quite high and positive, that sometimes more than a couple. And it reminds me that on any given day, your day can start really badly. Your day might start with some depressing news or something that makes you feel heavy, or you wake up just not feeling great, and your mind can start to tell you a story of, oh, this isn't a good day. Oh, 2 p.m. that afternoon, some miracle happens. Who knows what it is? Someone gives you some news, someone comes to visit, something happens in your neighborhood and so those are the times we're in as well. They're fast in good ways as well as in challenging ways. And so I think that's also why I think we have to be strong, because things can change so fast right now. So we have to kind of be, like you said, ready for anything that's coming. And I think that strength is a real focus for people at the moment. And like we said, some people might be doing it physically, some people might be doing it mentally, some emotionally, but it's required because these times are strong.
Yeah. Wow. Okay, we have a lot to dive into. So you have already come out with some pretty amazing projects, from past books like Energy Speaks, which you dropped way back in 2012, to Conversations with the Z's, to in the series to begin with, that came out just in the last couple of years. In addition to all of your musical albums, which there are many beautiful projects dating all the way back to 2010. My God, Lee, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You have like 12 albums.
Yeah, we've been busy.
You've been getting it in with your purpose. Wow.
We love music. What can I say?
You know, before we get into the latest book, which is officially out right now in all the places that you prefer to read and get your books, The Future Human, has anything surprised you that came to you that you channeled in these last few books that happened? Does it ever, do things ever happen and it kind of, you're like, oh, I mean, I knew that was going to happen, but damn, that happened.
Yeah, I think the information surprises me a lot because, the thing about being a channeler, so when I speak to my guides, it's like having a conversation, like you and I are having a conversation, but I hear them from just above the left-hand side of my head. So that's like a conversation that takes place between my mental awareness and what I'm hearing from them. That's private. When I channel for other people, or when I channel publicly, or in the case of this book, Regina asked questions while I was channeling, that just comes straight through and out. So I don't have an opportunity to edit it or to weigh in on it. So depending on what is asked, I learn things all the time. Like there are things in this Future Human book that are quite mind-blowing to me. Like I'm like, wow, that's something I would have never asked. It's something I would have never thought about. Mm-hmm. So I would say regularly the channeling surprises me. When I'm working as an energy intuitive, which is kind of like a few rungs down the ladder, I'm still using my intuition. My guides still tap in, but I also use my body and I use my feeling senses about the energy of who is in front of me, whether that's an individual or a group, or if I'm working online, I go a bit more psychic and feel into who might be watching it. But that comes from a slightly more grounded place. So when I do the channeling, like in this book, it's trippy because it's also, it's an interesting experience to give your energy, your body, your name to something that you can't always fully vouch for. I don't have vouched experience about what they're speaking about, but boy, do they go into quite a lot of detail with Regina about dimensions of our reality that I'm not seeing on a daily basis.
Yeah.
So that's very interesting.
Yeah, that is so interesting. So your most recent book, The Future Human, which you did with someone that I know, for those that watch Gaia TV, she's an OG. She is. She is an OG in the game. She's a celebrated Gaia TV host, Regina Meredith. What initially brought you two together to create this?
So Regina had me on her show Open Minds back in 2014, and probably I've done that show maybe 10 times over the last decade. And we developed a friendship along the way. We'd go for dinner and we'd stay in touch and we'd meet up from time to time. So we'd always said we wanted to do a project together, but we didn't know when. And I had this very sudden, unexpected gap in my schedule 2 summers ago. And so it was summer of 2023, and I just happened to be talking to her, and the idea came up that we could collaborate. So within 3 weeks, we were doing it, and she decided to come to England to do it because I was headed there anyway. So we ended up recording this in England, and it was a very trippy week because we had agreed on the kinds of questions that Regina was going to ask. She wanted to ask about how can we best live and best serve these times, but she also wanted to ask about some of the shadow aspects of our world. So I knew it was going to be a fairly involved process, but because the book goes into the future by many decades and also goes way back thousands of years in reference to some issues that we're facing now, it kind of spun us both out. We did a week of recording, and we do about 3 hours a day. And it took about 2 weeks to recover after the recording was over. I just felt not in my body, not how it took about 2 weeks because I think we'd gone into this quite out there high frequency space. So, and I've heard that from people who listen to the audio, which is the original conversations. The audible is not narrated. It's the conversations as they happened. So you're hearing it live in the room, and then the book was created from the conversations, the transcripts, and edited. So they have talked about feeling this frequency shift or this frequency opening. So yeah, that was the impetus for the project with Regina, and we had a great time doing it. You know, we have such an easy flow in the way that we both work. So it was a very easy project to do, just a little trippy.
Yeah. How do you recover?
I recovered by being a bit useless for a couple of weeks. Honestly, I was
the best.
I was a bit useless. And I'm not someone who rests easily. Like, I rest really enjoyably when I've exerted myself. So I'll come home from a tour and I will really enjoy 2 or 3 days of rest. But rest to me is not that interesting. You know, I feel like I'm here to generate and I'm here to create. And creating has always been my happy place since I was a kid. So if I'm not engaging with people that I enjoy or creating, those are my extroversions. And then I need introversion just to recover. But yeah, so what I remember about those weeks was just watching things, actually, which is not like me either. I don't watch many things on television, but I think I was just very on my couch a little bit for a week or two, and just very slow and not very functional compared to normal, when I'm normally, you know, pretty consistently functional.
You have been channeling the Z's now for over 20 years. Is that correct?
Yeah, I'm 48, and I first heard them when I was 23.
Wow.
25 years, and then publicly channeling since 2004. So yeah, it's been a while.
And then what makes up the Z's?
Right. So when I first met them, I asked who they were, and they said, well, we're a group. We're not one individual. You can hear one voice, but we're a group. And they said some of us have been incarnate before. So some of them have been human and they've had lifetimes on Earth. Others have never. And what they say is they call themselves a collective consciousness, they say we're like a library, in that we have our own knowledge base as a group, but we can also connect with other groups, other beings, other energies to gather what we need. So they often say they're a voice of galactic source energy, not because they are purely galactic, although they say that we're galactic and we just have had that scrubbed from our history. So they say you are all galactic beings incarnate as humans on Earth, and your humanity is very, very important to what's going on in the universe right now, apparently. So they say that what's taking place on Earth around consciousness has a big knock-on effect on the rest of the universe. So that's why they're involved, because some people have said, well, what are they getting out of this? What are they doing? And they'll often say, well, this is our job. You know, and it's both. I think sometimes we have how do I put it? I think sometimes we have an inappropriate reverence for spirit guides in a way that belittles ourselves and over deifies or gurus them. And the Z's have always said, we're no better than you or any other human. We're just in a different position, in a different vantage point. It's our job to give you our vantage point when you want it. And it's your job to take that vantage point and see how much of that vantage point you and all your fellow brothers and sisters here are capable of embodying on Earth, breaking out of some of the chains that we've been in, or some of the false beliefs we've been given that keep us small and that keep us restricted. So yeah, that's the best way I guess I could describe who they have told me that they are. And then over the years there's been lots of details, particularly in the Conversations with the Z's books. They go into some of the details of why I have an alignment with them, who they've been, all of that stuff. And I don't remember a lot of it, to be honest, because I don't retain the channeled information unless I retain certain principles and certain themes, but I don't remember sentences or paragraphs or
I love that. I really love that you said that we can over kind of, what was the term you like, deify?
Yeah.
Like, yeah, when we're in communion with spirit or in communion with guides or ancestors, sometimes I've never heard anyone say that, but I witness it a lot. Whereas when I'm in communication, it really does feel like collaborative process and not so much like you're speaking to me. Okay, and this is what makes me worthy, is that I'm hearing the thing. That's how it comes across sometimes.
And I don't know where that came from, Devi, because I think because of doing this work now, since my late 20s, I was a massive self-growth and spirituality student. Like from the age of 16, that was where my passion went. And I was studying and I was learning. But it was only when I started teaching that I would see this kind of phenomenon of people giving their power away either to me or to the Z's. And I would be, I was a little confused by it. And I thought, well, what is this phenomenon? And I think it's a couple of reasons I've come up with, and I'm sure there are many reasons. There's always many reasons. One, I think, is religious programming. I think we all grew up with this idea of, God and Jesus are here and we are down here and we have to stay separate. And I never quite felt the truth of that. I never felt God or Jesus would want that for us. I felt like that was a man-made construction and set of rules, which, there are many people who've said that before there was government, there was church, and that church was often used to control people, which is a shame because it takes away the beautiful essence of so many of those teachings and those energies and what they really truly stand for. So I think that's part one. And then I think part two is, for those of us, myself included, who weren't raised with spirituality, we go into a world that we think we know nothing about, and we've been trained to trust the teacher or the authority figure. So at first we come in and we're like, well, I know nothing, so I'm just going to absolutely believe everything you say. And I think that's why so many of us have those dodgy experiences with healers that we need to have along the way. You're like, you go to, you're like, what the hell just happened to me at this Reiki healer's house? And it's not that Reiki is the problem. It's that you got with a healer who isn't very aligned with you, or is just not very aligned in their work.
Not
but
an integrity.
You might doubt yourself.
Because
you don't quite, you've not got to the point of recognizing that everything is human too. And I think that was a big teaching for me, meeting a few spiritual teachers who really disappointed me in the early years. People who'd written some of my most beloved books, and then I would see the way they spoke to people backstage, and I'd be like, how are these two things together? So, our humanity is always in us, but so too is our spirituality. And I think, luckily, more kids are being raised these days with people holding space for them to explore their spirit and explore their soul. But in my generation, that wasn't really there. It was a very rule-based society. And so I think when you then go into spirituality, you give your power away because you think, well, I know nothing.
Right.
So I'll just believe whatever I'm told. And I think that's where some of the guru culture can come in. And some people need a guru because it's what they want, that level of codependent relationship. And that maybe is the best thing for them. But it doesn't work for everybody. We're all different.
This conversation is not at all going where I thought it would go. And I'm so excited and thrilled about this. Because everything that you just said is so important to say. I think now more than ever, it's something I think and say or try to address on this show. And it's just cannot be oversaid. It's so real. And it's funny, I resonate in so many ways with what you're saying, but one of the ways it has come to me personally that is always so interesting to me. And I'm so curious about your experience because your community especially is just so global and so vast. People get upset with me. Sometimes in my life, I've had the experience that I don't act above. And it is the strangest, most confusing experience when people are projecting on you that they want you to be their authority figure.
Right.
Or then you'll get things of like, oh, you're so humble or you're so this. It's like, no, that's not a responsibility I'm here to fulfill. I don't want to be anyone's authority figure. I don't want to be in codependence. I want to do my work. I want to share my work. And if my work touches you, I pray that you use it in the way that's necessary and useful and you create your work. But this idea, I think that is something that is so deeply human and so prevalent, and that many people don't fully understand how they'll trade the codependence with their family or the codependence with their relationship to now have codependence with quote unquote spiritual community or religious community, or have codependence with the person that you're obsessed with on Instagram or YouTube, or the person that, you go to their events or their retreats or their this. And it's like, we're all missing the point if we allow that. As a teacher, you're missing the point and you are feeding ego if you allow that, if you allow people to put you in that position and you start to play that role. And you're missing the point if you're connecting to the work, because it's always about how do you bring God back inside of your own body? Mm-hmm. How do you bring God back inside of your own life? Mm. I am not here to be a shepherd. I'm here to create and to be love and to live my integrity, to be an example, surely, but not to be everyone's parent and everyone's permission giver or everyone's, reflection for the way they need to be seen. And I think that's just important. And for anyone listening, if you are in the place where you are really needing that from someone, I think that's okay to be in a season of that. But recognize, you're in a season where you might feel like you want an example of better parenting that perhaps you didn't receive, or a better experience of someone, but the work isn't complete until you're in sovereignty, until you have opened your connection to the divine and are able to trust yourself and your choices.
Beautifully said. Yeah, beautifully said. Lots of things you said ping for me in my own life experience, and I think I'll go back a little bit when I first, because channeling wasn't something I was a fan of, and it wasn't something I was looking to do. I loved self-growth. That was my jam, and so channeling to me was something I thought was a little odd, if I'm honest. And then when it happened to me, I didn't find it odd that it had happened to me at all, but I was like, oh God, how's this going to go? If I'm public about this, how many people are going to disconnect from me because of this? How many people are going to judge me? And it did happen. I lost a few friends, who were like friends who I couldn't understand why this new thing that I was doing was so challenging for them. But when I went into the channeling world and I was taken to a few different channeling conferences as a speaker, I was shocked how many people were, how do I put it? It felt like they were feeding on the good vibrations from the channel, and then they'd go away and they'd need to come back again a week later to feed again because they weren't taking any actual nutrition from it. They weren't taking the nutrition into their body and letting it push into the part of them that maybe needed to look at their codependency. Instead, this became the new codependent relationship. This is how I feel good. It almost became like a drug for some people. And I would see that and I would think, there is definitely a feeling of expansiveness that comes from channeling. But if you're using it right, you'll get that at first, but then it will ask you to look at some areas in your life, or it will put a few things in front of you that you can then tweak and refine. And so I think the difference is, I'm going back to what you're saying about codependency, and I think sometimes spirituality or looking up to some other soothing figure or authority figure, we put them in that position and we deny ourselves ever becoming that position. But the truth is we're actually here to learn, right? The reason I so admire so many of my friends, and I've always had friends who are older than me, like 20 years older than me, 30, because I loved, like, they knew things. They embodied something that I wasn't capable of. And still to this day, I love my friends who are way wiser than I am in certain areas that I'll never be, but I do recognize that I learn a bit more just by being in their orbit. So I think spirituality is an osmosis engine. It should be something that you immerse yourself in to become more of it, not to become a transactional customer of the person that you have, you don't want to. For me, it just isn't a lifelong, okay, I'm going to be a lifelong student of this one person. Yeah. But that's me. And I come from a much more multidimensional viewpoint. I don't want to take away from certain people for whom the guru was their deepening with spirituality for a decade, or because there are different paths. But for me, it was much more, there's so much going on here. Yeah. I don't want to get into a transactional or codependent situation. And that just never felt true to me.
Oh my God. Yeah. God, it's just, this is necessary and important. Everything that you said. And I think, that I believe in reverence for your teachers, right? Same. I believe in the sacredness of what that relationship between teacher and student is. The relationship I have with many of my teachers, the relationship students have with me, like that is an important relationship, and especially in this work. But having reverence and gratitude for your teacher and the places you were able to go because they shared learning with you, knowledge, wisdom, and wanting to worship the teacher. Those are very, very different things. Very. There should be respect. There should be a certain pride taken in the years that you are a student, and in the fact that your whole life you'll be a student of something or various things, always. But when it comes to now, you're exerting the effort to worship a teacher, to bypass yourself or to please or to whatever kind of transaction or exchange that becomes, that's dangerous. It's very dangerous.
And you know who I think it's even more dangerous for, and we don't talk about this enough, is the teacher. Yeah, and I have seen people walk themselves off a cliff because they've allowed worship, and you watch it happening and you're like, oh God, this isn't going to go well for you. You shouldn't feed on that energy. That energy is not yours to feed on. It's not clean. It's not nutritious. It's dangerous. It's going to inflate you. Yeah. So whatever wound you have of inadequacy or I'm not but our self-worth issues are our self-worth issues to deal with as human beings. We can't take an area of our life where, we are perhaps appreciated and use that as a place to hide in and not deal with your self-worth issues. So you see a lot of people in that dynamic. And because I've been close to a couple of people who have, let's say, abused that worship energy, I got to see it very young. And it was a great warning to me. And I've noticed I don't really look online anymore. Over the last few years, I've kind of backed away from looking at comments and things, which is great for me now. But I used to notice there would be certain teachers around whom worship culture would happen. And once someone pointed this out to me and asked me a question about it, and I said, well, they're allowing it. Because you don't have worshippers around you if you're paying attention, noticing that's happening and smashing it down and stopping it because it's not good for them or for you. It actually creates a distance, but you see it out there. And then something you said earlier that I just on a personal level, one of the things I didn't really expect about doing this work publicly, and especially as it's grown, is how people change toward you in their behavior because of their perception of you. Either they, you know, I wonder if I've sometimes, I remember emails would come to the website and I would, you know, this was, you know, going back years, I don't see the emails really anymore unless it's something I really have to see. And they would say things like, oh, I would love to just go on holiday with you for a week and we could just talk about energy the whole time. And I remember thinking, yeah, I'm not going to talk about energy the whole time. Like, that is my work and that is a huge, vitally important part of who I am. But there are other sides of me that you don't actually know that might piss you off. Like, and so the thing that I've learned, especially in recent years, is projection that we all have on each other is a weird thing when you do a thing that's visible, because either the person knows your work and therefore has an idea about you or has an attachment to how you're going to respond to them or vice versa that you have to deal with, or there's the other flip, which is someone doesn't know what the hell you do, but someone at a party happens to tell them, oh, they've got a big YouTube following. And then all of a sudden it's someone who wants to have a conversation with someone who's got, you get immersed in all this stuff that's just kind of a little bit, now I'm better, but I went through several years of like, oh my God, this is weird. Like you get entangled in people's projections around success or notoriety and I had a few very famous friends in my younger years, and I would witness this happen with them, and I would always be like, oh wow, how odd. And now I have my own more microcosmic experiences of it, but it's funny what we do to each other in the way that we don't come in clean and unattached. We come in with all kinds of ideas, and you often have to go, okay, am I in front of a person who is with me and who is present and we're in complete, honest, energetic relay with each other? Or am I in front of a person who I can't reach? They don't want to reach me, but they've got some idea about what's going on here. And I mean, that doesn't just happen because of doing public work. I mean, that happens in every area of life. So that's why it's such a joy, isn't it? When you're with someone and you can just flow. Yeah. And it's like, oh, cool. We're not worried about what we each have or what we each do. We're just human to human in this moment, that those pure friendships and connections, and sometimes strangers, are just the best. Yeah.
So much in what you said. Oh my God, so much. One of the things too that you pointed out that I think is important for people to hear, especially if anyone is listening that is on this path, you know, you are a healer, a teacher, you are being used. Something you said, when you notice it, it is so important that you step in and cut that off, because you are the one that is creating the path forward of how you will be perceived to some extent. A lot is out of our control, but to how you're going to navigate that energy and that movement as it moves. And it's like, I remember I once had this experience where someone, and we hadn't even worked together in this sense. Like I hadn't done any one-on-one work with them, but they had consumed some things I had done and had reached out and were just like really upset and really emotional. And they're like, but you are my healer. You are my healer. And I had to be, very direct and say, I am a healer. Mm-hmm. That's between me and God. I am a healer. Yes. I am not your healer. You are your healer. You are your healer. I am not your healer. I am a healer, and everything I touch and work on can channel that. But you don't own that. You don't own me. You haven't even gotten my consent for that. You are projecting a mothering you would like to receive from me. Another thing that I think is interesting, and I don't know how much you get this, but when people connect to you deeply or something you're sharing that it's just God. It's just invoking in you, like I don't know where it lands or where it goes, but I trust that it goes where it needs to. People project on you their value system, their success system. So something I get a lot from people who only know of me, perhaps what I share on Instagram, which is not a lot, is, oh my God, like I love this. So how do we scale this? So how do we do this? Or you should be here, or you should be that. And I'm like, that's not my dream, right? Like fame to me is a burden. That's not my dream. I have no desire to scale this into anything that's mainstream, corporate, bigger, founder of this and this many people. That's not at all anything I want to do, but the way people can hold you and kind of see a projection of what they want your purpose to be or how they want it to be manifest so that it can align with what they identify as valuable. I feel that I am always, my whole life, have been very consciously and intentionally sidestepping all of that and saying, sure, I get it. You think I should be this and I should make everything my face or my name. That's not how I want to do it. And that's not how God's telling me to do it, even if I could do it that way.
I love that you're bringing this up because we can take this away from the example of the work that we do in the world, and we can bring it right back to all of us as human beings where, you are with a friend and the friend has your best interests at heart, and there's something there like cheering you on about, and they're so happy you're doing it, and all of a sudden you do a complete 360 and you go the other way, and that friend will still cheer you on. And then there are other friends who were your friend because they were kind of invested that you were going that way. They didn't really care so much about you or even understand what you really wanted or needed, but they were living in a reality in their own mind that they're in relationship with you. But they're not really. They're in relationship with the aspect of you that suits what they need and want, which is very different, right? And I'm going through, I think in my personal life in the last 2-3 years, I've gone through a lot of that. I've gone through a lot of, this is a transactional relationship. You don't see it. You're just in it. But I'm seeing it really clearly now, and I didn't before. And that's because I was a vibrational match to it before. And then I, had a couple of major discernment lessons in my life in the last couple of years that were really tough, but were really like an awakening around who can I trust? Am I trusting myself enough? Can I deepen how to trust myself? These are the people I can trust. And I see how these people might need or want something from me. And some of that's been to do with the work, and some of that's been just personal life. So I think there comes a point where you get clearer about the people that love you for you. Yeah. And those people because you feel completely relaxed when you're with them. And they've seen you through all ups and downs, and either you'll meet incredibly non-attached, wise, loving, compassionate people who can do that next week when they meet you for the first time ever, and then you'll have those certain friends in your life, they're in it for you as a soul, not you as an identity, because our identity changes all the time as we go through our life. Our soul doesn't, but our identity shifts and changes and grows. So when we think of projection that other people put onto us, they're actually trapped in their own identity and their own way of seeing things, and they're just trying to put us into a part in their play that we may or may not fit. So we can't blame them for that, but what we can do is go, oh wow, I just put myself in that part for that person for 2 years, and now I've come out feeling a little bit of resentment. Okay, I'd better forgive myself, I'd better forgive them, and I'll move on, and I won't let myself fit in that box next time. And I think we all do it because, like you said, we learn it in childhood. It's a survival strategy. So we're all kind of undoing ourselves and reinventing ourselves as we go. But I love that the example you gave of it through work, isn't that so true of who we are as humans every day? And us too, we have to catch ourselves in our own minds or feelings when we get activated by a certain person or a certain thing. And it's like, is this pure in me, or is this coming from some kind of wound or compensation? That's been another interesting, just for me personally, just kind of keeping my eye very closely on all of that the last few years.
I love the way that you said that our identity is always changing, but our soul isn't. Like, that's incredibly powerful, and just the visualization of that, of like that deeper core, right? Like, that is the constant, that is the oven that's always on. But we do get the opportunity to elevate in our identities and to constantly be kind of reviewing what contracts we think we've signed with who we are and how we need to present or be.
Yeah, and as you say that, I just feel called to say something. You and I have spoken about some of the very difficult relationships we've had in our past, relationships that we were in that weren't very, we weren't honoring ourselves by being in them because they weren't honoring us, right?
Yeah.
And I think there is something to recognizing that when we go down those paths, we're not making a mistake. We might come out of them and go, "Oh my God, why did I do that?" Well, we did it to learn. Like if we stayed in something that we then reflect was either damaging or difficult for us, we will really remember that lesson. Sure, we may repeat it in more subtle ways a few times just to kind of really test our discernment, but the soul is the essence of who we are. And let's say one of your lessons or my lessons was to come in and learn about discernment. Mm-hmm. Well, guess how we're going to learn discernment? Sadly,
masterclass.
We are not going to just be like, "Oh, I can see." We're going to. No matter how intuitive you are, your human lessons are your human lessons. Like everyone else, when I'm in it, I don't always feel that. I'm like, "Oh, I can have the woe is me. I can have the upset. I can have all those feelings and things." But I think the difference for me now at this age versus in my 20s, when I would have just been fully immersed in victimhood or whatever I was feeling at the time without as much awareness as I'll have now, I'm like, "Oh, okay, this is a learning period. Ouch. I need to be as graceful and kind to myself right now because I'm in a learning period." Whereas if I go back to my 20s, when I had a lot more self-attack and a lot more self-judgment, and I think really self-hatred was what was underneath some of that for me when I, look back on it now, in a way I would never behave toward myself now. I go, "Oh, I see. I had to walk into some of those things." And so I say that because I think, especially in spirituality or self-growth culture, there can be this goal of, well, I need to be ascended or I need to be healed. And I'm like, well, life will do that for us. But until we die, we don't know what our healing is. Until we pass over, we don't actually, well, we don't, right? And even on your deathbed, will you be able to look back and no, the game continues. Like we are alive in the game right now and it's continuing. So I think sometimes we have this perception that we can judge ourselves, and we can't really, and we shouldn't. But equally, if you are recovering from something really difficult, try not to judge yourself, because that is not the time that you want to be pointing the finger at yourself as, "Why did I get myself into this?" No, let the wounds heal. Mm-hmm. This is the time for the sling to do its work. Mm-hmm. This is not the time to go, "Oh, how did this happen to the shoulder?" No, this happened to the shoulder for a reason, and there's a learning, and now we're recovering. And sorry to use you as a literal example.
I'm a living example. Tell the people.
So yeah, that for me is a truth that I couldn't embody in my 20s. I was too hard on myself and too caught up in, let's call it, self-growth success culture, which it's not even a thing. But, the people who taught me, that was kind of how they saw it at the time. And I think that was more the culture 25 years ago.
Yeah, 100%. Oh my gosh. Everything that you just said was so powerful. So powerful and so important. And I think, and that culture is still, that culture that you're talking about, it is alive and well in course culture. And all the people that are selling, quote unquote, ascension based on monetary abundance. I think that's how I perceive it and see it. But it's all those other layers. It is like all of those other layers. That was really, really powerful. Your latest book, The Future Human, is available absolutely everywhere. Audible, Amazon, Barnes & Noble, all the places. And your latest album, though I do recommend that everyone kind of goes back into the archives, your latest album, Medicine Mantras Volume 2, just released in this last year. So I think that is just a beautiful chance and opportunity for people to kind of begin their deep dive into your work and into your community. As I close out every episode, I love to share with everyone a little bit of soul work. And so what that could be for you, to the audience, is anything like a journal prompt, a thought starter, a somatic practice, but something that those who are resonating with this episode can use to integrate even deeper into the things that we have been talking about?
What I feel called to do, and I do this on my tour and every tour stop, is to invite everyone listening and watching to grab a pen and paper, or if you prefer to type, pull up a document on your screen or on your phone and write the sentence, "What does my soul want to tell me today?" ? What does my soul want to tell me today ? And then give yourself 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 minutes to see what words come through for you.
Wow.
And for some of you, there may be no words. Sometimes people don't get words, but most of the time people get words, and it might be a sentence, it might be a paragraph. But it's a really powerful connect with the voice of our higher self, our soul, that everyone can do. And I that's something I like to share, because I believe that the reason channelers who do it publicly like I do, I think the point of our existence is to spread it through osmosis. Not that everyone has to become a channeler the way that it looks like I'm doing it publicly, but for our lives, it's so powerful to just connect with your soul, your higher self, your guides, and it's something all of us can do. So what does my soul want to tell me today? And give yourself 2-3 minutes to let the answer come.
Wow. I love that. I love that. I love that. And do it again and again and again.
You can do it every day, and then you can start asking other questions. So when I channel for myself, and I do it on my iPhone because it's usually with me, I use the Notes app. I write the date at the top, and I'll normally have a few questions. There might be some things going on in my life I want to ask about, or things in the world, but I'll always start with the question, "How am I doing?" ? How am I doing ? And that gives them an opportunity to tell me something that I'm not going fishing for, or that I haven't got my eye on. And so I get initially this wave of, oh, interesting, or to see things differently. And then I'll ask my questions. So you could be as simple as, "How am I doing?" But the reason for people who've never done it before, I use a sentence like, "What does my soul want to tell me today?" is it bypasses the idea you have to meet your guides. Not everyone's going to meet their guides. I didn't go looking for them. It just happened to me. But your guides aren't the only useful source of information. Your own wisdom is, the wisdom of your friends and loved ones is, the wisdom of nature, the wisdom of animals, and the wisdom of our own higher self and soul connection, which we all have and can access.
That is so good, y'all. Have fun with that. Start to see what happens in your life after you bring this powerful activity in. Yeah, thank you. That might be my favorite soul work we've had on this show. Thank you very much for that. Scroll down in the show notes of this episode if you're listening on Apple or Spotify or YouTube, and you will see links on all the ways to get connected to Lee. There'll be a link to his website, to his Instagram, to his tour, and of course, to the latest book that is available absolutely everywhere, The Future Human, with the amazing Miss Meredith. With the amazing Regina Meredith, everywhere. Lee, thank you so much.
Thank you, my friend. It's delightful to be with you.
Always. Catch everyone next episode. Please, if you get an opportunity, take a second and go on Apple or go on YouTube and leave a comment or leave a 5-star review with some words connected to them. I would appreciate that. Thank you for listening. Big love. Namaste.